Hi everyone, welcome back. Long time no see. Today I'm going to be showing you how I did the burn scar makeup for my Alicia Dessendre cosplay from Expedition 33. So let's get started. First things first, I'm using some Vaseline on my eyebrows, my eyelashes, and my eyelids. This is really important because I want to protect all of my eyebrow hairs and my eyelashes because I'm going to be using liquid latex. It can rip hairs right out, so you want to make sure you're protected. Now it's time to apply the liquid latex. I am just using one that I got from SFX Halloween. This is the flesh colored one that's kind of like a yellowy sort of skin color when it dries. You can also get the white kind that dries clear. Either one will work because we're going to be covering it with makeup anyway. But what I'm doing is I'm just looking at the reference photo of Alicia and I'm just starting to apply lines of the liquid latex to sort of match the way that her scars look. Then I'm taking a cotton ball and just unwinding it so I end up with these long strips of cotton and just tearing it into smaller strips, which I'm going to apply directly on top of the latex to create the scar texture. And once the cotton is laid down, I'm then going in with more liquid latex and just coating over the top of the cotton with it so that none of the actual cotton shows through. It's all going to be covered in the latex texture. I'm also adding in some sections that don't have any cotton on top, just little lines and dots of the liquid latex to create a sort of less obvious texture in those areas as well. And that's kind of the whole process, is just adding different lines and sections of liquid latex to match the reference photo and then covering those with cotton and covering the cotton with more liquid latex. Some of her scars are more circular, almost creating little holes in the scarring, and so I used cotton to replicate that as well and just tried to kind of pull it apart to lift it up a little bit and create even more texture. Speeding things up here a bit, but I just essentially continued to do this all over the entire face, trying to match the reference photo as closely as possible, but I did take a few liberties where I couldn't see exactly how the pattern looked, or where I just felt like the scarring made more sense on my own face shape. There is some scarring on her lips as well, so I did try to replicate that, but of course I was very careful not to get any of the liquid latex in my mouth or actually ingest or swallow any of it. As far as I know, liquid latex is considered generally non-toxic, but it's still not something that you really want to be eating or having inside of your mouth, so just be really careful around the mouth area. And just continuing to add more scarring all over the entire face. I also made sure to extend the scars going down my neck, since a little bit of the neck will be visible in the cosplay as well. Then I just used a blow dryer on the cool setting to speed up the drying process a little bit. Now I'm going in with some foundation over the whole face so that the scarring and my skin will be just about the same color. I did use a sponge at first to apply the foundation, but I didn't like the coverage that I was getting, so then I started using a brush instead. Next, I'm going to be applying my eye prosthetic, so I just went in one more time with more Vaseline to protect my eyebrows, my eyelid, and my lashes. I found this missing eye prosthetic at SFX Halloween. I was originally going to make my own with cotton, but they had one, so I decided to be lazy. I tried it on and realized that it was going to be way too big, so I ended up trimming it down to a smaller size to suit my eye shape. I applied some liquid latex around the edges of the eyepiece and also very carefully applied some around the outside of my eye as well, where I would be sticking the eyepiece down. Then I carefully pressed it down onto my eye area and held it in place to dry. Once the eyepiece was in place, I decided to add some more scarring around and on top of the eye prosthetic, just to kind of disguise the edges a little bit more and make it look a little bit less obvious. I also just added some liquid latex around the edges of the eyepiece in order to blend it to the skin a little bit more seamlessly. Next, I wanted to get rid of the red part that came on the SFX Halloween eye prosthetic, so I just covered it up with some concealer. For the inside of the eye, I just took some tissue paper and cut it into an eye shape and then pressed it into that mesh area of the eye prosthetic. I did have my eye completely closed under there to make sure that no liquid latex could get anywhere into my eye. And of course, I also had everything protected with the Vaseline that I applied previously as well. But I did go ahead and just apply some liquid latex to the prosthetic in order to stick the tissue paper down. I also peeled the tissue paper onto just one layer. When I tried to apply it as multiple layers, it was all separating and coming apart. So I used just one thin little layer to cover the eye socket. This is where I think I could have probably added a couple more layers of tissue paper and liquid latex on top as well to cover up the mesh a little bit better, but I didn't realize that at the time, so I only did one layer of the tissue paper. Once the tissue paper was down, I added more liquid latex over the top of that, again keeping my eye closed underneath there until everything was completely dry. And then just using a blow dryer to speed up that drying process. Next, I'm going back in with my foundation in a small brush just to cover up all the liquid latex on the eye and blend it in with the rest of the skin. At this point, I felt like the edges of the prosthetic still weren't blending well enough and it still looked a little too obvious, so I decided to add even more scarring to try to disguise the edges a little bit more. I do feel like I should have just made my own prosthetic out of cotton and liquid latex like I did the rest of the scarring, and it would have matched a little bit better. With everything in place, I'm taking this light purple eyeshadow and going over all of the scarring with a small brush. The eyeshadow sits naturally on top of the scars, but also sort of falls into the crevices on the sides and in between them, which creates a really nice shadow effect. And based on the reference photo, I added some purple shadowing under the good eye as well. I just continued this process until all the scars were shaded purple. Then I took this darker purple color and used that to fill in all of the sort of holes and the low points in between all of the scars, which created even more shadow and dimension. I used that same purple to fill in the inside of the eye and also mix that with some darker browns as well to deepen the color. I took this white cream makeup crayon that I had sitting around. You could also use a white eyeliner or something similar, and use that just to highlight the high points of the scars. I also went back into the creases between the scars with more dark purple and browns just to add even more shadowing and dimension. I felt like the inside of the eye still wasn't dark enough, so I took this cream makeup palette from Mehron, the dark purple color, and used that to fill in the eye socket. And then I also went back over that with the black color from the Mehron palette as well. Finally, I just added some normal makeup to the rest of my face. I kept it very light and natural because it doesn't really look like Alicia is wearing any makeup in the photo, so I just did some neutral brown eyeshadow over the eyelid and added a lighter color into the inside corner. Then just some brow gel and filled in my brows a little bit more with a pencil. Added in a little bit of mascara and some eyeliner into the inside corner of the eye as well as underneath the outside of the eye. And done! Here is the finished makeup look before I added the rest of the cosplay. And here it is with the full cosplay. When I took photos, I did edit them just to blend in the eye prosthetic a little bit better, but overall I'm really happy with how it turned out. Hope this was helpful and thank you so much for watching. Bye!